Okay. So first, before I start, I'd like to take this moment to thank God Almighty for bringing us together, for making it possible for us to be with each other, you know, because we know that these times are crazy. We know that these times are crazy. So we all have to come together, be thankful, be grateful, be humble, and to continue to do what we have to do. I am so happy to be here in Whiteville, North Carolina. You guys don't know. And let me tell you something. When these grants for these residencies are made available to folks, they can do what they want to do. They can take it anywhere they want to take it. I have been to residencies in Italy and Switzerland and wherever. And you can, in this particular grant, I was able to choose where I wanted to be and where I wanted to do. And Whiteville was the place to do it. And the reason being is because this is where my origin started. Yeah, folks look at me playing the bass guitar and all that. Yeah, but you know what? I was in that field. I was doing my thing. I was helping out. I was learning to have discipline as a young man. I was learning to have love. I was learning to be loved. I was learning to have compassion for others. I was learning to be humbled and honored to just be in the company of great people. And my family were great people. They were great people. And they still are. So I'm really happy this evening to be here. And before we start everything off, I just want to just play something, because the story, basically the story is that in my uncle Waylon and Lily Jones' house, there was an old guitar. And you know, I found out, for years I didn't know where that guitar came from, but I just found out the origins of the guitar. And the guitar was given to me by my little cousin named Jerry Lynn. Jerry Lynn. He gave me that guitar. And the guitar only had 4 strings on it. And most guitars have 6 strings on it, but this particular guitar only had 4 strings on it. And it was probably out of tune, and because I didn't know how to tune it, you know, anything. And I just picked it up and started playing, and I learned how to play the song "Get Ready" by the Temptations on 1 string. I came home, my mother Maisie McDaniel, she, you know, we was walking down Boarded Erie in Philadelphia, and I saw a bass guitar hanging up. And I said, "Mom, oh, I want that." She said, "No problem." So she didn't say anything. 2 weeks later, my sister and my mother put their money together and bought me a guitar. And it was on the bed when I came home. So I became a professional, and that was the beginnings. But my beginnings, my roots started here. In every place that I've gone all around the world, I've never forgotten here. And I'm so glad to be here with you this evening. Before we start, I'm just going to give you a little sample of what I've been doing. Okay? All right. I like to play solo sometimes too, because solo, you can really express it. You guys can cut your phones off. I didn't have my guitar strap with me, so I had to play it on my knee. So that's cool. So, history. Case. Okay, so history. History is a beautiful thing because you could actually find out some things. You can be inspired by some things. You can find out about things that you didn't know about before. And it's a very interesting thing about history in our community. And we have a historian in our family that wrote a book, and I'm going to bring him up right now. And please put your hands together for Mr. Joseph Jones.
Now, Jamal asked me to join him in this venture a few months ago, and he asked me to talk a bit about our family history and his place in our family history. First of all, all of you know already that Jamal is an acclaimed, internationally acclaimed musician. I mean, what you may not know is he feels jazz in a lot of other parts of the world is a lot different than it is here. He fills soccer stadiums, or what they call football stadiums, in other countries when he performs. Jamal has been on the Tonight Show with Jay Leno. He's been on the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. He's been on what's that other guy's name? Dave Letterman show. He's played with all of the jazz greats. He's played with Carlos Santana. My favorites. He had Max Roach on there.
Okay, yeah, because he likes jazz. Carlos likes jazz.
So he has a lot of acclaim throughout the world. But before that acclaim, Jamal had a Dirt Road Xperience, and that's right here in Columbus County, Whiteville, North Carolina. I thought that Jamal was like a tourist tobacco worker. I mean, I thought that he came down here and walked the tobacco field and tobacco. I found out that wasn't true. That actually suckered tobacco, and put in tobacco, took out tobacco. If you saw drove the tractor, so you're not a tobacco tourist. You're a bona fide tobacco worker. So that's he's a bona fide worker. So he has a bona fide experience. But before he had that international acclaim, he had his Dirt Road Xperience right here. Let me explain a little bit about his family history. Jamal is my first cousin. His mother Maisie was my last aunt. Maisie's best friend was my first cousin, Mildred. And Maisie and Mildred, although Mildred was her niece, they were very close because they were about the same age. Isn't it ironic that Jamal and Mildred have the exact? So my first Mildred and Jamal, my last first cousin, have the exact same birthday. Before Jamal came on the scene, his mother, Maisie, who again was my last aunt, she was about 9.5 months old when her father died. Jamal's grandfather, Maisie's father died, and Maisie had to be carried. Somebody carried Maisie in their arms, walking behind the wagon and mule that carried your grandfather to his grave in our family cemetery. Before that, Jamal's ancestors before they were in this part of the country, our ancestors were in Virginia. And according to family lore, I know they were in Virginia, but according to what I've been told, they were in the Virgin Islands before they were in Virginia. I have copies of the documents that actually shows the enslaved members on both sides of your family being transported from Richmond, Virginia to New Orleans, Louisiana. Your maternal ancestor, Esquire Lewis, arrived in New Orleans on a ship called the Phoenix on February 16, 1846. Your paternal ancestor, Henry Lewis, the father of Henry Hill, arrived aboard a ship called the Bachelor on February 20th, the next year, 1847. And it's a long story. A lot of it I don't know how they made their way from New Orleans to South Carolina and then North Carolina. But suffice it to say, they got to this point, and after they were enslaved in the Lees Lake area, Lees Lake Township area. Our family was enslaved in the Lees Lake Township area of Columbus County. After emancipation, they stayed in the very same area where they were enslaved, worked because nobody could pay you in money. The country was in a terrible, terrible economic straits after the Civil War. And I can explain how that happened, but that'll take like a week to explain that. But so nobody had any money, but they stayed in the same area where they were enslaved and worked for land. They were paid for their labor in land, and they worked enough to secure in excess of 100 acres of land in the Lees Lake area. And all of our families flourished. They didn't just exist. They flourished in that area after emancipation, only losing that property during the Great Depression. But they, again, cleared that land. They worked and farmed cleared about half of it, about 50 acres, and farmed it. They started a church which is still in existence today, by the way. They started a school, and your grandfather and my grandfather, at about the age of 38, 37, 38, somewhere in there, already had 5 or 6 kids, went 100 miles from Whiteville to Shaw University from 1921 to 1926. So your acclaim, while it's great, it's expected. It's expected because you have, I understand that you have talent, but I understand you're a very talented person, but talent without hard work gets you nothing. So in addition to the talent, it is your hard work that's made you an international acclaimed jazz musician. And again, it's not surprising that you have that kind of intuitiveness and hard work in your background, because you've had that Dirt Road Xperience. Hard work and talent is in your DNA.
That's well, you know, your father was the one that had me out there. Okay. Yeah, you know, please give Joseph Jones a hand once again.
If you have questions, I'll talk to
Yep, we're all gang up on you at the end here, and to keep things moving. But even before we continue on, I want everybody to put their hands together for Mr. Scooter Fresh. DJ Scooter Fresh. Okay. Okay, so let's move on here. There's a young lady. There's a young lady who we met. We were down here at a funeral service, and we happened to meet her. And we were so excited to know that she was another one that was full of enthusiasm about history, and we were completely inspired. And so my wife and her, they stayed in contact, and so when we decided to do this, it was like, she's got to be here to do this as well. So everybody put their hands together for Marion Nance. Where are you going? She's a librarian and a storyteller. And she's nervous, but you know, you're gonna give her some slack. Okay. But yes.
Can you hear me? What's the mic? Very animated to cut my hands off. I can't talk.
A little closer.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Close to the mic. Right into the mic. Talk right into the mic.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Over 400 years ago, when my ancestors were brought from, okay, over 400 years ago, when my ancestors were brought from Africa to the Americas, there were 4 things that kept our culture together: music, dance, religion, and storytelling. Now, since the spoken word, before words were written down, there have been storytellers and used. Stories and storytelling and history go hand in hand, with oral history as well. It starts in the home. So we must never, ever stop telling our history. And we must not ever stop telling stories. Now, when my ancestors came, they brought stories, and they told lots of stories about animals. who they had the same freedom. You have to be really smart. These are animals, and they were coded. They were coded with morals, they were coded with peace, with wisdom, with survival skill, and entertainment. And I'm going to tell you a couple of those stories. Now, this first story takes place in Texas. You have to pretend that it takes place here, but it has to be a cold place. And when I say Bubba, he never missed, I want you to help me to say, he never missed Sunday morning service. Can you help me? Bubba, he never missed Sunday morning service. Right. One day, Bubba got up early in the morning because it was so cold. Bubba was a good person because he never missed Sunday morning service. No matter how cold it was, he would get up, he would make some hot, steaming chocolate and drink it down and warm him up. And he would get his clothes on, buttoned up tight, put on his hat, his gloves, and his boots, and he'd go outside and get on the road to go to church because Bubba never missed Sunday morning service. And Bubba's going down in Texas, is going winter cold. And Bubba sees this big black piece of wood. And he goes over, he says, "Now, my mama and I, we met to stay warm." So he gets over to the wood, and it's not a piece of wood at all. It's a snake. But you know, Bubba is a good person. So he says, "Well, I'll just pick this up and put it in my coat." Hey, you never know. You know, you do something good for someone, and they'll do something good for you. So Bubba's walking down the road. He's going to church because you know Bubba never misses Sunday morning service. And he feels this, Mr. Smith, are you getting warm down there? And the snake said, maybe. And Bubba says, "Well, you know, Mr. Snake, I want you to promise me something that you won't bite me because I did you a favor." And the snake said, "I won't bite you, boo. I won't bite you." So Bubba gets on the road and he's going to church because you know Bubba never misses Sunday morning service. So Bubba's going down the road, the wind is blowing, and he's running because it's so cold. And after a while, he starts feeling the snake just wiggling around, and he's just tickling, and he unbuttons and unbuttons, and up pops the snake, and he said, "Boom, I'm gonna bite you." And he said, "Oh, Mr. Snake, you promised me you weren't gonna bite me. I did you a favor. I warned you up." "Bubba, you know I was a snake, and it was in my nature." And he swished away. Well, you know, Bubba was so lucky he was downtown next to the doctor's office. And he got to the doctor took the poison out, and he said, "Bubba, you're gonna be all right." Well, the next week, Bubba got up and went to church because you know Bubba never misses Sunday morning service. But Bubba learned his lesson, and I hope you did too. Because if you see trouble, and you know it's trouble, you better leave it alone. And you know it's trouble, leave it alone. Leave it alone. You better leave trouble alone. You better leave trouble alone. Bow and bend it. This story is ended.
Ready? And Earl Hunt. Chaucer is a historian, a cultural preserver, an artist, visual artist. And Earl is a curator for North Carolina Cultural Resources.
How's everyone doing today?
Good.
My name is Tatsu. I'm from LaGrange, North Carolina. And I was looking at this little dirt road, so my story starts on a little dirt road also. Lived on this little dirt road, and I love to play in the mud. Being an artist, I didn't have too many materials that I had to buy, so I would use all the natural elements that were out there for me. One of those things was dirt. Anybody know anything about playing in the dirt? Yeah. So there are many products made from the dirt, ceramics, pots, and all that type of stuff. So I played in the dirt a lot, and I waited for my aunt to come home from Richmond, Virginia, and I'll be on this dirt road, waiting for this little pink Cadillac to come down the road, because when she got to my house, I knew she had these things that looked like big round albums. And we had this stereo, so she would put the albums on, and the music that she was playing was James Brown music, which I really, really love. Didn't know James Brown was from my area, but she would put on something like Papa Got a Brand New Bag. And my uncle, he was like, I'll give you a couple dollars if you go out there and dance for me. So they would put that music on, and I'd get out there, hey, come on, we're gonna have a funky good time. Yeah, come on, y'all, gonna have a funky good time. Yeah, we're gonna take you high. Yeah. That's what's up. So I would be dancing off that. I really didn't know who James Brown, but I knew that they loved music, and the musicians that were playing in that group was actually from Kinston, my hometown. I didn't know that James Brown traveled to Kinston from Augusta, because he had some type of dealings with his manager. His manager wanted him to sing music like Little Richard, so that's why he had that straight hair going back like that. But he didn't want to do that. He wanted to sing something funky. So he came down to Kinston, North Carolina, and hooked up with Nat Jones, Dick Knight, Maceo Parker, and Melvin Parker. And they started an album called Grits and Soul. And James Brown, that's where he got his fame from. It's Kinston, North Carolina. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pass the mic, like you used to say. Pass the mic, like you used to say. Mr. Earl Hunt has done a great thing called The Broken Funk from Eastern North Carolina, and he will give you further information. All right.
By the way, Max Roach is from North Carolina too.
Okay.
Yeah. So Gates County.
Okay.
Yeah. So these are good people. So you're a good company.
Okay.
Well, good. I want to thank you, Brother Jamal, and for having this CD. Coming back home to North Carolina. And I was inspired to create an exhibit because a lot of people was giving James Brown credit for being the father of funk music. Well, it's not quite so. As Ms. Sasha was mentioning, he was in a record contract with King Records and James Brown and the Famous Flames. Everybody remember that? Yeah. All right, 1955 through 1962. But James Brown, with his third grade education, he wanted, more business, and also he had the foresight to know that America was changing and was becoming an integrated audience like we have here tonight, right? So he wanted to upgrade and capture the latest sound that was in segregation back then, and it was called a Chitlin Circuit. Anybody ever heard of the Chitlin Circuit?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so as Ms. Todd said, Nat Jones was a super producer during segregation on the Chitlin Circuit. He's a 1960 graduate of North Carolina Central Music School, valedictorian. He had his own band and traveled all over the country, but it was in segregation. But he packed venues so much that white people would come into the black venues to see him. And this new sound called funk that he was creating that was emanating out of Eastern North Carolina. So James Brown wanted to get out his contract with King Records so that he could take advantage of this new sound and bring it into mainstream. As I mentioned, he only had a third-grade education. He was in a contract war with King Records, and King Records said, if you leave and sing on another record, we're gonna sue you. So being a genius he was, he traveled back to North Carolina, met up with Nat Jones. Nat Jones said, James, I got you. Papa got a brand new bag. He wrote this album in 1964 called Grits and Soul.
Grits and Soul.
Grits and Soul, 1964. It was the first funk album, groovy. When the word groovy came out, funk, and it's all musical. James Brown doesn't sing at all, so he doesn't break his contract, doesn't get sued. He plays the piano. And super producer Nat Jones produces that album and the next 3 albums, totaling over 58 songs altogether, over 50 songs altogether, between 1964 and 1968, when James Brown really ascended to what people know of as funk. And so I'm going to read to you part of the panels, because what happens is James Brown gets rid of his whole old band altogether and puts Nat Jones in charge. And the first thing Nat Jones does is hire this musical prodigy called Maceo Parker. The only man who has played with Prince and James Brown and won a Grammy. A musical prodigy. The greatest living saxophone player today, Maceo Parker. So Maceo Parker, like Nat Jones, was a college graduate at North Carolina A&T. In their music, he had his own band. He was touring, and at the time when he wanted to sign Maceo, he was touring, so James Brown went to A&T to meet up with his brother, a man named Melvin Parker. Now, Melvin Parker, God rest his soul, just passed away about 2 months ago, but that song, The Funky Drummer, is named for Melvin Parker. And so Melvin Parker plays the drums. The saxophone is by Maceo Parker, and Nat Jones kicks in a backup saxophone, alto sax, and then another Kingstonian, a man named Robert Dick Knight, plays the trumpet. And a man from Greenville named Levi Raspberry also plays on this album. So essentially, James Brown comes to Eastern North Carolina and, as the rappers say, just bite that music and brings it mainstream. And with his showmanship, changes the whole world. And the reason that inspired me to write this exhibit is because the musicians Maceo Parker and Dick Knight, they said, Earl Hunt, we want you to tell the world how we changed America for the best by having people come together like a venue like this willingly to integrate, instead of those pictures that you see of people forcefully desegregating and along that line. So I'm going to read part of the panels as I hold them up here. Eastern North Carolina musicians bring the funk. There's a picture of the James Brown Orchestra here in 1964. Among the musicians pictured are Kingston natives Nat Jones, Melvin Parker, Maceo Parker, and Dick Knight, among others. Eastern North Carolina brings the funk. What is funk, actually, right? Does anybody know what that is? You've heard funk music, right? Right? Okay. So, musician Maceo Parker describes funk music this way. When I was interviewing him, he was saying, some music is reverent music, like church music. And then he says, some music is listening music, kind of like classical. But the music that I create, that we create, makes you want to get up and dance and bring the rhythm and bring the funk. So this genre first emerged within American music during the mid to late 60s. African-American musical pioneers from Eastern North Carolina helped create the funk when they joined up with James Brown in 1964. Kinston and Lenore County, natives Nat Jones, Maceo Parker, Melvin Parker, Levi Raspberry, and Dick Knight changed the musical landscape with a sound that still permeates the American popular landscape today. The Nat Jones-led orchestra, in combination with the performance by James Brown, brought the funk. How did the funky sound develop? Jones, the Parker brothers, Big Night and Raspberry accompanied Brown as he performed his rhythmic new and rhythm and blues. Funk de-emphasized melody and harmony, brought a strong rhythmic groove of electric bass and drums to the foreground, with musicians playing the B-flat chord written by Nat Jones, which was highly danceable. And if you ever heard the B-flat, it's kind of like boom, dum, 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 like that. So that is the sound that he created in the funk that now became a whole new genre. Thank you, brother. We'll get this other panel here. So, funk strikes the right chord with integration. As I mentioned, these musicians wanted me to write this exhibit so the people like you understand their role in the civil rights era, the human rights era, when everybody was fighting for equality for everybody. So performers of the funk genre encourage all races to willfully integrate. They told me this story one time that segregation was being broken down in the 1960s, and in eastern North Carolina, they would do these parties or these concerts in tobacco warehouses. And they would run a rope down the middle, and they would say white on one side or colored on the other side. And they would go to playing, and the rope would disappear. And then the sheriff would come and break up the show, pull the rope out, they would play again, the rope would disappear. After 2 or 3 times, the sheriff gave up. And integration was effective. So the Kingston artists played with James Brown as his brand throughout the segregated South and the North and throughout the world, inspired a new and hip generation to get funky by creating a form of music that compelled youngsters from different ethnic groups to dance together, thus helping to ease racial tensions after the passage of the 1964 Civil Rights Act and the 1965 Voting Rights Act. So on May 1st, 1966, Nat Jones played a saxophone solo to James Brown that said, "I got you, I feel good." Like I do that you would on the Ed Sullivan Show. On the Ed Sullivan Show. Now, this is interesting because not long after this was during the early days of TV, so not long after this, there was a show in San Diego that also featured the Rolling Stones and Mick Jagger. And they had the nerve to put James Brown and Nat Jones and Dick Knight and Maceo Parker on first, and they ripped the stage up. Mick Jagger didn't want to come on after that. Fast forward, I was writing this, and I wanted to get a copy of that. Guess who owns the show? Mick Jagger. He bought the show. So, a popular television program that Main Street America watched at the time. So the Kingston Artists performed with James Brown during the Freedom Summer of 1964 through the 70s. And what you see here is a picture in Wilson, North Carolina of the Ritz Theater and people outside listening to funk music in the late 1940s. All right, and that picture was provided by another drummer for James Brown from Eastern North Carolina from Wilson named Sam Lathan, who is 94 years young and still plays the drum. 94 years young, yes. So the funk legacy lives on. Between 64 and 67, Nat Jones Band, director for James Brown Orchestra, Jones also wrote many of Brown's hit records during this time and is part of the rebirth of funk and rap music. So I wrote this panel because I wanted people to connect the new modern rap music and how most of the rap music, especially in the early 80s, late 80s, early 90s, literally all sample all of James Brown's music that was written by Nat Jones with Maceo Parker and Melvin Jones playing the drums. So some of the rap songs that derive from the music that Nat Jones wrote for James Brown, DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, everybody know him? Brand new funk. That is also based on James Brown and Nat Jones. And the lyrics Get Down from a James Brown, which is, it's a man's world. You remember that? Okay. They have been revived by the rapper known as Ice Cube, right? Where he teamed up with a female rapper named Yo-Yo, and It's a Man's World that was cut in 1990. And that's a rap song that samples it. George Clinton, everybody know him, right? Yeah. George Clinton is Maceo Parker's protege. George Clinton was recruited by Maceo Parker when Maceo Parker left and formed the Funky Music Machine and All the Kings of Men in 1968. According to Maceo, he said James Brown wouldn't pay him. He said they wouldn't pay him, so he broke off and took most of the band with him. And George Clinton and a man named Bootsy Collins from Cincinnati, Ohio, that really took off in the 70s with the Mothership. All that was inspired by Maceo Parker. So George Clinton is also from North Carolina, from Cabarrus County, down near Charlotte. And he was a protege of funk music and creator of what we call psychedelic funk and the Mothership, right? A more forceful version of funk that emerged during the 70s. So Dick Knight, who you'll have an opportunity to see later this year, Dick Knight calls himself the one-man band. He's a 2018 North Carolina Heritage Award nominated by Ms. Chauncey for that award. And he still performs 2-hour concerts at 80 years young. He calls himself the one-man band. And as I mentioned, Sam Lathan, at age 93 years young, is going to be doing the Juneteenth program in Wilson, North Carolina this year coming up. So Maceo Parker still tours. Well, he doesn't because he actually gave his last performance last year on the Chitlin circuit in Kingston. So, but Parker's album, Funky Music Machine, that you see, could make you put your high heel sneakers on and get funky and dance. All right? So, you're not alone, brother. You come, the apple doesn't fall far from that North Carolina tree with the jazz musicians and the funk. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
Keep the hands together again. Sophies. That was, wow. That was very inspiring. Absolutely. I want to, you know, as an artist, you know, we be right. Oh.
Uh-oh. It's all right.
Okay, so as an artist, you know, we're always trying to find a way to get our music out. Things have changed now. The music business has changed over the years. Now we have social media, which allows the musician to do for themselves. We have to sometimes wait for the label to put the record out, control the narrative. They do the artwork. They call the shots. Okay, now we have a situation where, as an artist, one could think about what they want to do. They can think about the story. They can think about how they want to be presented. These days, because of the way that the music business has changed, things are shifting in terms of how the presentation is going to be made musically. And so still, as a musician, when you can run into a person who's involved in the business of music, as an artist, if you can communicate with them, if you can collaborate with them, if you can get them to understand what it is that you're trying to do, and you can work with them together, it's a beautiful thing. I've been working as a producer for some time now, and my experience has been varied. Sometimes I work with labels who they don't get it. We put a project out, you know, like, what do you do with this thing? You know, we put our hard work into this project, and you know, what do you do with it? Sometimes I work with labels that we put something out, they weren't really into the project, but somehow the project was a little bit successful because of so many different, you know, variables. But sometimes you can meet a label or a company that is with you, they understand what you're trying to do, and they're with you all the way. How many of you guys have heard of a group called the Last Poets? The Last Poets is they were a revolutionary group in the 60s. They were talking about justice and equality. And they didn't bite their tongue about what they wanted to say. And, you know, I produced this record, and the record sat on the shelf for some years. And I approached the gentleman, and went to him, and he sat down and he heard my story. And he was like, okay, let's do it. He was like, I was like, cool. Now, it's funny how things work. We were putting out that we were going to do this event here. We found out that he was going to be in the area. So he's here tonight. So I want you to put your hands together for Mr. Lewis. From Roach Records. I absolutely will put you in the spot. I want you to say something to the folks. I want you to say something to the folks. Because I appreciate you.
Well, somebody earlier said they were nervous. That was nothing. I'm really nervous. It's just, what can I say about this gentleman? I see it from the other side. I didn't know any of this story until about 2-3 weeks ago.
Right.
And everything was broken down, and it just so happened that I was on my way south for warmer weather. I thought, well, I want to go see what this is all about. And just seeing everybody in this room and seeing the town and driving through the swamp this morning and just seeing everything that's down here, I could just feel it, you know? And so when you were talking about the history of here, I get it, you know? Like you can feel it down here. And you know, what is that? I mean, it's not really a lot. You don't need a lot to support a guy like this. I'm on the other side of it, and in Philadelphia, and New York, and London, and Paris, Tokyo. We deal with musicians from all around the world, and they're world-class musicians with Grammys. And I mentioned his name, and they always.
Thank you, Lewis. I want to bring, you know, in thinking about the music, when I came down here, I was hearing something about beach music, and I was curious about it, and I was really excited about it at the same time, and I didn't know anything about it. And the first thing that I thought about was the 1960s surf music. You know, there was a guitar player named Dick Dale who did this, you know, and I kind of found out that it was something a little different than that. So I go on, I do my research, and I found out about Terry Priest from over in Southeastern College. I was over there, and I go into the auditorium because I'm going to be doing a master class workshop there. What date is that?
March 1st.
March 1st. Let everybody know that March 1st over at Southeastern College, we're going to do a master class workshop. It's free. Everyone is invited. If you know musicians, if you know young people who are interested in music, if you know folks who are interested in the business of music, come out, because we're going to be talking about music and we're going to be set up there to play. But as I was going into the auditorium, I saw this billboard with these guys fantastically dressed, and I was like, okay, I like that. So I did my research. The first thing I see is this group doing this song from Philadelphia, from a group called Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. The Love I've Lost. And I know all of those guys who played those records. I'm like, wow. And these guys, they were called the Embers. And they was dancing, they was stepping, they was kicking their feet up. I was like, I'm digging this stuff, right? And I did my research. I told Raheem, I said, we got to get this guy here. So he was gracious enough to come here. We appreciate that, and we thank you for coming out. Please put your hands together for Greg Willard. Here. Get up here.
You gotta get up there.
Thank you, my man. The Embers were formed in 1958. I was not, well, I can't say I wasn't, because I wasn't. But I was just a little tiny kid. And I joined in 1976. Not many people know this, but the Embers, when they first started, were 3 white guys and 1 black guy, saxophone player.
What year was that?
1958.
It's kind of touchy, wasn't it?
Yeah. When they would go to different places and they needed a room to stay, you know, the hotel clerk would say, well, we can't let him in here. And our drummer would say, why not? He's Puerto Rican. That's the truth. And they had worked it out beforehand. And they would say, tell him, Jose. And the saxophone player would say, no speaking English. No, so I come from a history of that, but I didn't even know until just a short while ago. I'm from Little Washington, North Carolina, both the times. And I did not know this until maybe a year ago, that Nat Jones, who you guys were just talking about, was a teacher at P.S. Jones School in Washington, North Carolina. Had I known that, I might have been the first white guy with James Brown. So I just want to say that one of the things that you and I have bonded over is this Philadelphia music.
Yeah. We're going to do a record too.
We are going to do
We're going to do a record.
Don't be surprised if you don't see in the next year or so the Embers, the Philadelphia Sessions. So when I was growing up, man, it was Ray Charles. That was who it was at my house, Ray Charles. I grew a little older and I heard the real Sam Cooke singing Darling You Send Me. And then I heard the real Sam Cooke singing that gospel music, like Touch the Hem of His Garment, stuff like that. And so then I heard Marvin Gaye. Of course I heard James Brown, but nobody can sing like James Brown. You know, but these other people, that's who I emulated. Teddy Pendergrass, all of the Philadelphia people. That's where I come from. So I just say thank you to all of you in here who listen to me when I come to play. And thank you for all of you in here who have made my influences turned into and distilled into what I do today. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, this is interesting. I want my cousin Bebe. Where are you at?
She's hiding.
I want you. Don't help her. I want you to come here, Bebe, and say a few words because the concept of the Dirt Road Experience, the inspiration came from her. The name itself came from her. We were, you know, I mean, I remember when I used to come down here. We would be barefooted and having fun. But there was the actual dirt road from Aunt Evelyn's house to the highway that existed, and we would go there, and we would. I heard that the kids used to have to walk there to go to school. Now, sheesh, Jared, like your Uncle Henry, the kids had to walk from there all the way up to the highway too? Sheesh. So, that was nothing. So, when you go over across the street, after we leave here, we're going to go across the street shortly. Just to look at some of the things because what's happening there, I'm going to tell you about it later. But if you see some Mickey Mouse things hanging around, there's a story behind that. When I would come down here, very little. I think when Jerry and I, when we first met, we were real little. And Jerry, you just told me something that I didn't know. That they used to watch you on the weekends. I didn't know that. His babysitter, she was a babysitter, right? So the love was starting there. And then I would come, we were the same age. And I remember, the Christmas that we met, we was laying in the bed playing, eating peppermints and I remember oranges and nuts and all the good stuff that was happening. Anyway, so when you go over to the studio, you see Mickey Mouse. Here's a story, because my Aunt Evelyn, she used to have this little rubber Mickey Mouse that I couldn't wait to come back down here to see every summer. She would hold that thing for me and I would see that. So the dirt road was something that was inspired by him. So I just want you to say a few words.
Yes, a friend of mine, we were going to do a reunion called Up the Dirt Road. And we was going to invite the ones that lived on the dirt road, if you know what dirt road I'm talking about. We was going to have a reunion where we were going to get on the back of a truck and we were going to ride and we were going to sing songs and we were going to set up a tent, but it didn't ever pan out. So I was just talking to him about it. I didn't know he was going to take our name and use it. My G.I. Joe boy.
When you see G.I. Joe's over
I
here.
used to go to Philadelphia, and he's just as humble now as he was then. But he always played with G.I. Joe. I don't care where you see him, he was playing with a G.I. Joe. So we talk about G.I. Joe. I said, if you still had him, we could be rich now because they'd be famous. So when he came home, he called me up and he says, I found some G.I. Joes. And I'm going to take them over and I'm going to play. So he came over to the house. G.I. Joe had sand on him. He took him over to the old place and he got down on the ground and he played with them G.I. Joes where he used to. But he wanted to talk a little bit in our culture that we did and how we still do and how our family shared and how we took what we had with others. And how when the families came home, a lot of us were younger then, how we would put things up in our freezers and how they would can food. And when they came home from the summer, and when they got ready to go back, everybody had food to carry back to the city. We shared, we as they say, we gave such as we had, we shared what we had for our family. And whatever that was love. We gave. We might didn't have money, but we gave such as we had. And right here, love music, but let me tell you, he loves some food. He loves some food. All he has to do is tell me that he's coming home, and whenever he get here, it is ready for him. And I truly love him. He is still my G.I. Joe boy.
So there's so many folks here. I can see all my family there, The family was so huge, you know, and we had so many different factions. There was factions, you know, because my grandmother and my grandfather on both sides, I never saw them. I was the last of all the children, of all the 10 children that Luther and Bertha had. So, and I was all the other cousins, they were privy to seeing the grandmother and grandfather, but I never saw them. So my aunt and uncles, they took care of me. And I love y'all all for that. But yeah, you know, when we would come home, come down, and when it was time to go back, folks was going in their freezers, picking those butter beads up, canned jelly. I mean, who does that anymore? Golly, you do? I mean, come on. When my Aunt Lily used to make those biscuits, come on. And they have it up in the north. They got a little nerve. They have a nerve to have like the little soul food restaurants. I'm like, no, this ain't happening. This is not happening. You know, I was looking at the Andre Leon Talley, the editor that used to be with Vogue. He just recently died. You know, the big African American gentleman. He used to say that his grandmother, from North Carolina as well, said his grandmother used to make biscuits. She used to make a pan for him because they were so good, just him. So I can understand that. We have one other person. Is that it?
I think that's it.
That's it? Oh, okay.
We're done. That's a wrap. That's a wrap.
So listen,
Head back over there.
I'm going to be here for a month. I'm going to be camped out over there in the studio. If any of you guys ever want to come over there to talk about anything, I'm going to be there writing music. I'm going to be set up. Matter of fact, when we leave here, I want everybody just to go over there and see what's going on. There's art pieces over there that are available to the public if you want to, see something or have something. Because what I wanted to do was engage the community with art and music and culture. There's some pieces there that from artists from Whiteville. There's some pieces there from artists from Philadelphia. I want you guys to take a look. But I'm going to be there every single day. I want you guys to stop by. You know, Rudy. Oh, Jamal. Rudy. Rudy, what you doing? No, Jamal, what you doing? As a matter of fact, my cousin was funny. My cousin said when I changed my name to Jamaaladeen, she didn't know how to say it, so she just called me Bamalam. Jamaaladeen, what's that? So that was funny. But yeah, so I'm going to be over there every day, every single day. I'm going to be over there working, creating stuff, you know, and I'm going to be bringing in musicians from, you know, George Jeffrey's there, the guitarist. When I came down here last time, he just called me up and I went over there and had a little jam with him. And we tore the place up. We had never played together before. So we're going to be doing a lot of that. The 26th, I'm going to be doing an official concert over here at the Chef and Frog. You know, the band that I put together, the Dirt Road Xperience band, I love these guys. They're from, one guy's from Fayetteville, another guy's from Raleigh, another guy's from Rocky Mount, and the saxophone, the girl who plays saxophone, she's from where?
Raleigh Durham. Raleigh Durham.
Raleigh Durham, okay. And they came to play with us at the family reunion that we had. So, you know, they're going to be there with me. I love those guys. And so, Southeastern College, you know, workshop, masterclass, come there. You know, we're going to be talking about the business of music. We're going to be talking about music in general and just trying to be good human beings because, you know, as a musician, it's important. I try to tell the young folks, try to look better than what you're looking like. Come on, you're going on stage, you know, pull your pants up. You know what I'm saying? You know, pull your pants up. You know, wear something decent so you can represent what you do. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You know, so let's get, you know, so it's interesting that as a human being, you want to be the best human being that you can be. You want to be, no matter what your religion is, you want to be the best human being that you can be. So you can respect others, so you can be respected. And so it's important for me to try to impart that knowledge and that information to them. I tell the guys, I say, look, you guys want to be musicians. Don't be out hanging out all night and clubbing and all that because you got to get up the next day to go to your next concert. You know, you can't party all night and then, you know, the flight is leaving at 7 o'clock in the morning and you still in the bed because now you still in the bed. You messing up that money. You messing that money up, right? Right, Greg? You messing that money up. So I try to give them information like that. You guys be, you know, the musician, the young guys, you know, take care, handle your business, take care of your business, you know, be respectful, and so on. So I think that's about it. I love you guys. I'm so glad you guys came out to support this event, you know. And like I said, you know, if you ever want to meet me over there, just come right over there. And I got other family members that's going to do some singing and stuff. What you want to say?
If you don't mind.
I don't mind.
I do love my cousin Jamal. I love it. Jamal.
Bamalam.
Bamalam. I love my cousin Bamalam. But I just like to say, my name is Diane Garner, better known as Lady Di, with radio station WVOE 1590 on your AM radio dial.
What's that?
AM radio dial.
I forgot.
You know, we're talking about Bamalam here and the history that he has. I have a couple of my co-workers here with me today.
Bring them up.
Our
so
station
sorry.
manager, Martha McCoy,
Yeah.
and one of our DJs, Mr. Matt.
Come on up.
Yeah.
Come.
Yeah, talk
And
about that
just
radio
let
station.
them
Yes,
the
yes.
people here
Get
know
up here. Get up
a
here.
little bit about WVOE, which is a very historic site.
Get up here. Get up
A
here.
very historic site.
Yes.
We have been in existence since 1962. So let me introduce you to Martha, better known as Sweet Gospel, McCoy, and Mr. Matt, Jim McDowell.
Praise the Lord. It's an honor to be here. I'm Queen of Gospel, and I've been with WVOE for almost 50 years, and we are in the process of having our 62nd anniversary. 60 years we've been in existence. And we just need your support. We play a lot of music and we do a lot of advertising. If you need your programs advertised, we're glad to do it. And we just blessed. We just blessed over at the radio station. We need your help and support. Out of 60 years, you know, sometimes it go down. Things are getting a little short. And we need your help and support on May the 21st will be the 60th anniversary. And we're going to have it on the church, on the grounds of WVOE.
Okay.
We're going to have it outside, and we're going to have good music, good food, good groups. And all of you, just come over. Everybody here, just come over and help support us. And I'm glad to meet you and you, because I just met him today. I thank God for you being in this city of Whiteville. And if we can be of service to you, we'll be glad to do it.
The same here.
And we need all your help. God knows we need your help. Any businesses that want to advertise with us, please give me a call at WVOE 910-654-5621. And just let us know, and the office will be glad to hear from you.
All right.
You heard about that radio station. You heard it, your mamas heard it, some of your grandmamas have heard this radio station. As Ricky said, they used to play it when they used to be in the shed in the tobacco barn. That's back in the 60s and 70s, in the good old days. As she said, WVOE, 1590 AM in Chadburn. It is the oldest Black-owned radio station east of the Mississippi. It's right here in the backyard. As we look forward to tomorrow, I feel your spirit and your energy. And I think you're going to do well and be a positive influence right here.
Oh boy, thank you.
Where you need it.
Okay, I'm here.
And just let me say one more thing. Again, our radio station opened in 1962. At that particular time, it was the 5th oldest Black-owned and operated radio station in the United States, the first east of the Mississippi. We don't know how many are left, but we're still here.
Still standing.
And when the radio station opened in 1962, there was a program called the Woman's World Program. It was hosted by a legacy in the name of Mother Annie Mae Williamson, who died at the age of 95, I believe, probably about 4 years ago. So my dear brother, volunteered me because he used to visit her when he came home from Georgia. And she said one day, you know, I'm getting older. I need somebody to kind of help me out whenever I need, you know, doctor's appointments. She was into the church. She wanted to visit the churches, etc., or conferences. So my brother volunteered me, and I trained under her for about, I think, 2 years, and until her health failed, and she was no longer able. But that program, the Woman's World Program, is still going on, carried on by me, and I am alive every day, Monday through Thursday from 11 a.m. until 12 o'clock noon. I'm also live on Facebook. So pull me up, Diane Garner, better known as Lady Di, and hear what I've got with you in mind. Thank you so very much.
We do want to let you know our founders. Do anybody know Deacon Willie J. Wallace? Great man of God. He left the legacy there, and we miss him, and we want to carry it on. We don't want it to die. So we need your support. So please help us if you can.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Once again, put your hands together. Wonderful. Okay, so I would like all the panelists to just come up quickly, and we're going to take a photo and any quick questions. We're going to kind of make this quick. Okay. There was a lot of information that was given out. Go this way. Get up here, Lewis. Okay, so are there any questions? You know, there was a lot of information that was given out. Any questions that anyone has for anyone? No questions? Okay, cool. So we can start taking our photos now. All right.
All right, everybody look over here. Look at me. Marion, make sure you get Marion up in there. Everybody look over here. 1, 2, 3, look at me. Yay! All right, there we go. All right, I got it. All right, say goodbye to the live stream. Thank you for watching.
Watching the Dirt Road Xperience here in Whiteville, North Carolina.
Yeah. Okay, bye-bye.